When you refuse money out of guilt, you're not being humble. You're breaking the ecosystem that keeps everyone fed. If you've been doing the receiving work, if you can accept help and say yes to support, but when money shows up, you still freeze. If someone tries to pay you and you immediately deflect, if you undercharge because acting for what you're worth feels greedy, if receiving money makes you feel guilty while giving it away feels righteous, then this one's for you. Hi, I'm Melanie, your witchy mother. I help women who left control-based systems remember their own power and live it daily. Today we're talking about money as energy in an ecosystem, how receiving resources sustains the whole system, how money received with grace becomes money circulated with purpose. You'll learn why refusing money doesn't protect anyone, how to receive payment without guilt, and what actually happens when you let yourself be resourced. By the end of this, you'll understand money not as a moral test, but as energy that just needs to flow. Welcome to Your Witchy Mother. We cover everything your mother never taught you without the guilt. Body-led choices, steady money, clear boundaries, with practical rituals and zero performance. Let me tell you something that will probably piss some people off. When you refuse to receive money, you're not being spiritual. You're not being humble. You're breaking the ecosystem. And here's what I mean. Money is energy, and like all energy, it needs to move. It's like a pond. It gets stagnant if water doesn't leave and come in. It gets gross. When it flows, when you receive it with grace and circulate it with purpose, the whole system thrives. But when you block it, when you refuse payment, undercharge, or give it all away before you're even resourced yourself, you create a leak, not just in your own field, in the entire network. Here's how it works. You do work, real work, work that helps people, creates value, shifts energy. Someone tries to pay you, and you say, "Oh no, you don't have to pay me," or "Just give me whatever you think is fair," or "I feel weird charging." You think you're being generous, you think you're being spiritual, but here's what you're actually doing. You're teaching that person that your work has no value. You're modeling scarcity instead of reciprocity. You're staying depleted, which means you can't resource anyone else. And you're reinforcing the lie that spiritual work shouldn't be paid. In an ecosystem, when one part refuses to be fed, the whole system suffers. When you refuse money, you don't just stay broke. You break the flow for everyone downstream from you. So why do we do this? Why do so many of us freeze when it comes to receiving money? Because we were taught that money is a moral test, that having it makes you greedy, that wanting it makes you shallow, that charging for spiritual work, creative work, care work, anything that comes from the soul is selling out. I learned this early. My grandparents grew up in the Great Depression. Every penny was survival. They would save ketchup packets. They would save slivers of soap so that then they could melt them all down into one big bar. Every penny was survival, but also every penny had moral weight. You had to suffer to earn it. You had to prove you weren't greedy by refusing to keep it. And if you had money while someone else didn't, you were supposed to feel guilty. That belief got passed down like an heirloom. My mom inherited it. My dad inherited it. Then I did. And here's the real mindfuck. My dad taught me that good women give and never receive, that asking for anything, including fair payment, meant you were selfish, like my mother. So I learned receiving money means you're greedy, selfish, not spiritual enough, and fundamentally flawed. No wonder it feels dangerous. How many of you are still running this program where you'll give your work away for free, but accepting payment feels wrong? That's not humility. That's poverty consciousness dressed up as virtue. Here's what shifted for me. A few years ago, I had $1,000 in savings. I had set it aside, designated it for my taxes. I felt broke, completely paralyzed about spending $250 on my kids' Halloween costumes, and a birthday date with my daughter. Halloween and the birthday came up. I looked at my bank account and I instantly was like, oh my God. It was fear, scarcity. All that money that was in my bank was spoken for. That feeling was the obedience contract still running. The spiritual trauma whispering, you're not allowed to be easy, full, or joyful. So I stopped. I asked my gut, is this $250 for Halloween costumes and birthday lunch with my daughter? Is it for joy? Is this a yes? My body screamed yes, but my mind screamed irresponsible. I chose the yes. I moved $250 from my savings into what I now call my Sacral Response Fund, and I immediately spent it on joy, costumes, birthday date with my daughter. And here's what happened. That money didn't magically multiply, but my field did. The migraine I'd been carrying broke. The fear snapped. That $250 wasn't an expense. It was the first boundary I set for a new timeline. The next day, $150 showed up in my bank account that I wasn't expecting, that I hadn't worked for. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I can't just spend money I don't have. That's not responsible. You're right. This isn't about reckless spending. It's about receiving what you already have without guilt. I had the money, but I felt broke because I was white-knuckling it in fear mode, saving for taxes. When I chose to receive it, to actually use it for joy instead of hoarding it for fear, my field shifted. And when your field shifts, energy moves differently. Here's the thing nobody tells you about wealth. It's not about accumulation. It's about circulation. Money received with grace becomes money circulated with purpose. When you receive payment for your work, you're being resourced. When you're resourced, you can resource others. You buy from small businesses. You tip generously. You support artists, makers, healers. You invest in your kids, your community, your causes. That's the ecosystem. But when you refuse to receive, you stay depleted. And when you're depleted, you can't circulate. You're not buying from anyone. You're not tipping. You're not investing. You're hoarding what little you have out of fear. The refusal to receive doesn't make you humble. It makes you a dam in the river. Devotion now looks different for me. It looks like paying people well for their work. It's tipping 30% because I remember what it's like to serve. It looks like buying from small makers, going to the farmer's market, even when Amazon and Walmart are cheaper. It's investing in my kids' experiences instead of hoarding for someday. When you let yourself be fed, you have enough to feed others. That's not greed. That's how ecosystems work. So here's how you start. When someone tries to pay you, don't deflect. Don't say, oh, you don't have to. Don't undercharge out of guilt. Look them in the eye and say, thank you. Receive it. When you get paid, don't immediately spend it all on bills or other people. Put aside some for joy, for ease, for the thing that makes you feel resourced, not just functional. When you spend money, don't apologize. Don't justify. Don't carry guilt. Spend it with purpose. Circulate it with intention. Let it resource you and everyone downstream from you. This is money magic, not manifestation, not hustling, not hoarding, just receiving with grace and circulating with purpose. When my back aches or my pulse pounds, I know I've crossed the line again. That's my body saying, hey girl, rest before the altar becomes a hospital bed. And when my bank account feels tight, but I'm still spending out of fear instead of purpose, that's my field's sermon. Hey, you better receive before the river dries up. If you've tried these practices and you're realizing there's a deeper block around money, if receiving payments still feels dangerous, if you can't stop undercharging, if wealth feels morally wrong, I've got space in my clarity sessions. A clarity session is a 60-minute call where I read your field, name what's blocking your money flow, and give you a clear next step. You'll leave with truth, direction, and a week of Voxer support to anchor it. This isn't financial coaching, it's energetic mapping. Understanding why money feels like a threat and how to shift that at the root. If that sounds good, the link is in the description. Book when you're ready. You didn't come this far to stay broke out of guilt.